Hello and welcome to another episode of Down to Disness, a monthly show where I pick a Disney animated movie and talk about its history and its impact on pop culture. This month's movie is Dumbo, released in 1941, Disney's fourth animated movie ever. The original story of Dumbo was written by Helen Aberson and it was illustrated by Harold Pearl. The concept was originally supposed to be used just for a prototype toy, but then they sold the rights to Disney and the rest is history. Am I right? Show business. Now I don't know if you know this because they're very popular movies today, but when they were released, Pinocchio and Fantasia did really badly in theaters. As a result, Dumbo had to be made on a very small budget. Like the smallest budget they could manage. Which is why Dumbo has watercolor backgrounds, which are extremely cheap to do, and it's one of the very few Disney movies that have those kinds of backgrounds. The final cost to make Dumbo was $813,000, and it's probably still the cheapest Disney animated movie ever made. And it grossed over $2.5 million, which was more than Pinocchio and Fantasia grossed in their original releases combined. This is one of only a few reasons why I and many others call Dumbo the little engine that could. Which is fitting because Casey Jr. is in the movie. But for real, Dumbo was the little miracle for the Disney company. It followed a few flops and it saved them in a time of economic depression. You know, the Depression, that time in American history called the Depression. Dumbo was made during that time. And in between wars. Time magazine was going to feature Dumbo on the cover, but the cover was cancelled because of the Pearl Harbor attack and that made headline news instead. Still, Dumbo was a huge success. He went the distance. Wrong movie. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but Dumbo is one of my favorite Disney characters of all time. I think he's just adorable. And I find it amazing that I love him so much when he doesn't speak a single word in his movie. He's completely mute, like Dopey. But unlike Dopey, Dumbo is the lead character in his movie, and he's the only lead character of a Disney movie who doesn't speak. Still, Dumbo is a really important movie for voice acting in Disney history. And that's because voice actors Sterling Holloway and Verna Fenton made their debut as voice actors in this Disney film. This was their first Disney film. We've talked about Verna Fenton before. She voices Mrs. Jumbo, and she also voices the fairy godmother in Cinderella. Sterling Holloway is an extremely famous voice actor. He voices the stork in Dumbo, but he's also, I don't know, the voice of Winnie the Pooh, Kaa, just to name a few. After appearing in Dumbo, these voice actors would become regulars at the Disney studios for the next 35 years. Did you know that in the early 2000s there was a plan to release a direct-to-DVD sequel called Dumbo 2, which was about Dumbo and his friends finding their way back to the circus? Fun fact, did you know that the circus that Dumbo and his friends would have been trying to get back to, but it's the name of the circus in the original movie, is WDP Circus, which is Walt Disney Pictures Circus. Ha-cha-cha. Unfortunately, the idea was scrapped, but of course we've already heard the news about there being a live-action Dumbo film made by Tim Burton and Disney, which will undoubtedly be amazing and twisted in classic Tim Burton fashion. Just goes to show you that people still care about Dumbo and want to see more of him. 'Cause he's adorable. Side note, the scene where Dumbo's taking a bath is the cutest thing I've ever seen. Speaking of DVD and video releases, Dumbo made history by being the first Disney film to be available for VHS rental. Dumbo was made available for rent in 1981 and for sale a year later, and that was the first Disney film to be on tape for people to watch at home. Also, Dumbo gets the award for the rarest animation cells in Disney history. This is because, and I don't really understand why this happened, but the animators back then, once they were done with the cell and it was in the can, as they say, they would slide down the halls on them? Someone maybe needs to explain this to me a little bit, but it is said that animators would put them on the floor and slide down the hallway on Dumbo animation cells, which is why they are so rare, so hard to find, and such treasured items to those who have them. Dumbo is also an extremely popular character in the Disney parks. There used to be a Dumbo walk-around character, which was slightly terrifying, but he's been in fireworks shows, and there are 5 Dumbo the Flying Elephant attractions across the globe. They appear at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, Tokyo Disney, and Hong Kong Disneyland. 5 parks, 5 Dumbo rides. I don't know what that was. Speaking of Disneyland, when President Harry Truman visited in 1957, he refused to go on the Dumbo the Flying Elephant attraction because he could not be seen riding an elephant, which is the symbol of the Republican Party. I think he missed out. Another reason people call Dumbo the little engine that could is because there was a huge animators strike at the Disney studios during Dumbo's production. The Depression in the 30s gave way to the rise of labor unions, which included the Screen Actors Guild, but also the Screen Cartoonists Guild. Being the biggest, baddest animation company out there, which they still are today, Disney was a target for the Cartoonists Guild. They wanted the Disney animators to join the union. The leader of the guild approached Walt and demanded that he sign a salary agreement with the union, otherwise he would force his animators to go on strike. Walt's response was that he was going to leave it up to a vote amongst his company. The guild didn't really like that answer, so a strike ensued. The strike lasted 5 weeks, at the end of which Walt actually left for South America. This was because the South American government was paying him to visit South America to distract from Nazi propaganda, but it's also where he did the development work for the 2 films The Three Caballeros and Saludos Amigos. That's when those 2 films were born. While he was gone, the strike was handled, everything did indeed cool down a little bit. A federal mediator actually had to step in and filed in favor of the guild on almost every issue. Disney signed a labor contract and they've been a union company ever since. This is huge for Disney history because, like I said, Disney's been a unionized company ever since. And previous to the strike, Walt truly felt that his team of animators were like his family. When the strike happened, it kind of shook his whole world up and he didn't know who to trust anymore. And it's said that years after the strike, he still never forgave people that went on strike against the Disney company. But Dumbo was kind of the last production to have that family feel to it before things evolved. Through everything, Walt and the feature film Dumbo prevailed against unbelievable odds, and it's still one of the most beloved Disney classics of all time. Like I said, myself and many others adore Dumbo. It's a true American story, one of the only Disney movies to this day to be set in America. Dumbo himself is a little engine that could, learning to fly and beating the odds, being a circus star when no one believed he could do it, except for Timothy. And the movie prevailed by being a huge success when it was made with such a low budget under extreme circumstances, and still remembered today for being such a classic. And I can't end this video without talking about pink elephants on parade, because that is terrifying and amazing, and one of my favorite clips from any Disney movie ever. And it's in Fantasmic, and it's so good. So let me know in the comments down below what your favorite thing is about the movie Dumbo, and as always, leave suggestions for what my next Down to Disness video should be on. What movie would you like to see me talk about? And until next time, have a magical day. Bye! Pachyderm.